Hello and welcome to Mysteries of the Sea. This video is going to focus on a varying range of topics that involve cryptids, conspiracies, and the unknown. Lady Lovibond. Many people are aware of the story of the Flying Dutchman, but I am sure few know of the ghost ship known as Lady Lovibond. On February 13, 1748, Captain Simon Reed took his ship, the Lady Lovibond, on a trip to Portugal, but it ended tragically. The captain had just married a woman named Annette, and was celebrating his nuptials below ship, but little did anyone know the first mate, John Rivers, had also fallen in love with the bride, and paced in a fit of rage on the upper deck. During the trip, John grabbed a belaying pin and struck the helmsman with it, and tossed his body overboard. Mr. Rivers then steered the ship into Cuban Island, which resulted in the death of all 52 members aboard. The story doesn't end here, as most would. It was reported that 50 years later, in 1798, several captains reported seeing the fated Lady Lovibond floating around the sand reefs of Cuban Island. Again, 50 years later, in 1848, fishermen saw the ship appearing to be stranded on the sands and sent out rescue boats. But when the men arrived, nothing was there. You guessed it. 50 years later, in 1898, the ship was spotted appearing to be in distress, but disappeared again when approached. In 1948, Captain Bull Prestwick saw the ship and stated it appeared to have an odd green glow. No reports of sightings were mentioned in 1998, so maybe the crew has finally found peace and could move on. Black Demon. In a previous video, I covered the Megalodon, but it appears that off the California-Mexico coast in the Sea of Cortez, residents have sighted a similar creature. The eyewitnesses claim that the giant shark is 20 to 60 feet long, and rather than having a gray-like color like great whites, it is mostly black. Most all describe its massive tail that whips the water before disappearing as the most recognizable feature. Reports state that for years, fishermen claim to have had their boats hit by the shark, and many fear the creature has a taste for human blood. Like many great whites, this shark is said to launch out of the water after seals, but is able to engulf a whole herd in its mouth. The eyes of the Black Demon are said to be massive and able to strike fear into anyone who sees them. Many doubt the reports, claiming that the Black Demon is actually a whale shark, but no one is quite sure. It should be mentioned that in 2012, a 20-foot great white shark was caught in a net of a commercial fisherman in the Sea of Cortez. Cuban underwater city. The Bermuda Triangle has been one of mystery for years, but in 2001, a discovery was made that almost trumped what the triangle was famous for. Pauline Zalitsky and her husband Paul Weinswig, who owned Advanced Digital Communications, were working with the Cuban government to survey the ocean floor near Pinar de Rio Providence. During this mission, a sonar image of a sunken city emerged, complete with pyramids. This discovery led many to believe that the couple had found Atlantis, but some are unsure if the objects may be natural or not. Experts state that it is puzzling since the city is located under over 2,000 feet of water, and estimate it would have taken 50,000 years for the structure to sink naturally. It is stated that no civilization known during this time period had the technology to construct these buildings. Later reports claim that a sphinx was found as well, as there being operable machines in the buildings. While those reports need to be taken with a grain of salt, what truly is odd is that now in 2016, a full 15 years later, no one has explored the site. It should be stated that in 2014, funds were compiled to investigate the site, but what was discovered has not been talked about. This leads many to wonder if the discovery was covered up, or if it may have been just a hoax. UB85 atrocity. When I first saw this topic, I thought it was one I had covered before, but shockingly, this is a totally different case. The original cryptid I had made a video about was the UB85 Abomination that resembled a strange crocodile. I state this so the two stories are not confused, since I was at first. On April 30th, 1918, the British patrol ship Cryptids came across the German submarine known as UB85. What confused the British soldiers was that the sub didn't try to escape or submerge when they approached. Once aboard, the captured Germans told of a tale that would scare the most steadfast sailor. Captain Gunther Kretsch of the UB85 stated that they had surfaced the night prior to recharge the sub's batteries, when suddenly the craft was hit with something unseen that caused the starboard bow to dip underwater. It was then that the crew saw what hit them as the beast crawled its way onto the U-boat. The creature had large eyes and a small horned skull, but with large teeth that shone in the moonlight. The crew opened fire, but the creature held on to the forward gun mount. Captain Kretsch said that the creature had enough weight to cause the ship to list to one side. He feared the creature would sink them and ordered his men to continue firing on it. Finally, the creature slipped back into sea, but the captain noticed that the forward deck plating had been damaged in the battle, making it impossible for the U-boat to submerge. This is why the ship didn't attempt to escape when the British sailors approached. Philadelphia Experiment. This is the most popular topic in this video, but it deserves to be talked about. Under the mysterious Project Rainbow, 2 separate experiments were conducted on the destroyer escort class ship known as USS Eldridge. On July 22, 1943, it was reported that the U.S. government tested a device that manipulated electrical fields in order to render the ship invisible while it sat at dock. Reports claimed that the ship glowed green and left many of the crew members sick mentally and physically after the experiment. The other supposed experiment occurred on October 28, 1943, and it involved teleportation. It is stated that the ship was seen in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and 15 minutes later, eyewitnesses saw the craft in Norfolk, Virginia. In this second event, it is reported that some crew members were found missing or embedded in steel. Officially, the government denies the experiment, but does state it attempted to make the ship invisible to underwater mines via degaussing. Degaussing is a process that is used to mask magnetic fields by using wire wrapped around a ship's hull. There are opposing views on if the project happened or not on either side of the field, but no one knows for sure. I will state that it was reported that Albert Einstein and Nikola Tesla were involved in the first experiment, but Nikola died before it could be tested. If true, I believe that those 2 men could be capable of figuring out just about anything. With that, be safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Later. I wanted to mention that recently my channel was featured on one of my subscribers' channels, and I would greatly appreciate it if you checked out his channel, which is Mad Cat Mysteries. He covers a lot of interesting topics in the line of cryptids, UFOs, anomalies, and the like. I really like his setup and hope you would consider subscribing to him.